everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. And welcome to T1D with Maddie, episode number 1. And today's controversial topic, or kind of debatable topic, as you can probably tell by the title of this video, is my thoughts, opinions, kind of the facts that I know about keto and ketogenic diets. This question was posed by Kelly Smith. She has been commenting on my videos a lot. We've been interacting a lot, and I appreciate all the interaction she's given me thus far. I've got a lot of great video ideas from her, so with that being said, let's jump into the video. So, first of all, I'm going to pull up an article here that I'm reading from healthline.com. I will leave all my links down below of anything that I've researched that I have done, but I'm going to basically read off what they define as a keto diet. So it says the ketogenic diet is a very low-carb, high-fat diet that shares similarities with Atkins and low-carb diets. And the person who takes on this diet often will have either high or moderate levels of protein combined with their diet. It involves drastically reducing carbohydrate intake and replacing it with fat. The reduction of carbs puts the body into metabolic ketosis. The healthier ketosis versus the DKA, which is an unhealthy version of ketosis. So that is the basics behind the ketogenic diet, and there are actually some different types. So a standard one is when people have a very low carb, moderate and high protein and high fat diet. So typically they're going to look at consuming 75% fat, 20 to 25% protein, and 2 to 5% carbs from their daily caloric intake. Then there's also the cyclical ketogenic diet where they go where they will like sit away from the carbs for a longer period of time, go with the high fat, high protein, but then they'll reverse themselves and have a few days of going really high carb to kind of give their body the carbs back that they were missing. And then there's the targeted ketogenic diet that allows people to add more carbohydrate or less carbohydrate depending on their activity levels or their workouts that they are doing. And then there's the high protein one, where instead of eating moderate to normal amounts of protein, they would eat higher levels of protein, up to 35 to 50% protein, 60 to 70% fat, and again, less than 5% or less carbs. So it all depends on what the person chooses to do, and it all depends on what type of method they're going to go for. So this is the basics behind a ketogenic diet. So first of all, I'm going to address whether I not think going into ketosis is healthy or not. So honestly, I don't think ketosis is a problem as long as it's not affecting all your other blood serum levels, like your potassium, your sodium, your fluids, any of those major elements that allow your muscles and your organs and your cells to function. I think it's okay to be in some ketosis. Honestly, my blood sugar right now is 110. Well, because I limit my carbs too, I'm not on a ketogenic diet. But because I limit my carbs, I could take a urine ketone test and still be spilling trace ketones in my urine because my body has burned up the carbs, and then now we'll be moving on to the fats for energy and metabolism. So honestly, I don't think going into ketosis is dangerous as long as your ketone levels don't go extremely high. Having small to trace ketones in your urine is not that dangerous. Ketones are a very natural biological byproduct produced by the liver. I don't think there's an issue with that. However, if ketone levels become very, very high, it may or may not cause a diabetic or a non-diabetic to go into acidosis of the blood. Now, with a diabetic, the DKA comes from also having really high blood sugars. The reason for ketosis in DKA is because of a lack of insulin. The reason for ketosis from a ketogenic diet is because of the lack of carbs for energy. So the body instead resorts to fat. So the ketosis in a ketogenic diet, in my opinion, is much more healthy than the ketosis coming from high blood sugars. Because obviously high blood sugars are going to kill you too. They're going to cause dehydration. And they're going to cause the acidosis of the blood much quicker. But do I honestly believe eating high fat level is that all that good for you? I don't think so. Because fat is a good source of energy, but even putting a ton of fat in your body probably isn't good on your blood vessels. Obviously, too, it depends on what kind of fats the person's eating. So if the person's eating a lot of saturated or trans fats, biochemically, the way they are arranged and structured, they are more likely to stick to the inside of arteries and veins and blood vessels and can cause clots and blockages, which can lead to, obviously, as you guys know, heart attacks, strokes, where the brain and the heart end up becoming deprived of blood, nutrients, and oxygen, and it can actually kill off portions of those organs. So if you are going to go with a ketogenic diet, make sure that the fats that you're eating, if I were you, make sure they're very healthy fats, like unsaturated fats, like polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats, lower amounts of the saturated fats. And make sure you're eating healthy cholesterols too, heart healthy cholesterols, not, the crappy cholesterols from fast food, but like the heart healthy cholesterols that are found in like nuts and seeds and avocados and like, any of those like plant-based proteins and plant-based fibers are going to have healthy fats included in them as well, which are really a good source of energy. So if I were you, I would watch out on that. I really don't have a problem with sticking with the low carb. I think that's actually a pretty good idea for a diabetic to stick to a fairly low carb diet. My carb diet probably isn't as low as maybe what some do. I don't eat any more than 60 grams a meal. A couple times I've tried 75, but I tend to have a more difficult time controlling blood sugars and keeping them healthy if I go above 60. So, and 60 usually fills me up, but I could have a nice filling meal at 40 grams of carbs either. But I try not to go below 20 or 15 for a carbohydrate meal or snack, just because for me, I'm so active, I burn up those carbs so quick. It doesn't really make much of a difference to me, but in terms of those who follow, if you guys have heard of Dr. Bernstein, if you follow his diet or his protocols, my diet would be considered fairly high carb, being 60 a meal or 40 to 60 a meal. That's like double to triple what he would eat in a day. What I would eat in one meal would be about the equivalent of what he might consume in a day or two. So, in essence, Dr. Bernstein is kind of following a ketogenic diet in a way that he is reducing his carbohydrate intake and he is increasing his proteins and his fat sources. As far as protein is concerned, you probably could overconsume protein, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hurt you that much. Protein is used for us to remake our own DNA, rebuild our muscle cells, and just keep all the cellular functions around, to make our own amino acids for our own DNA replication. So honestly, as long as you're not eating like 5 pounds of steak a day, you're probably fine. The more of the danger comes in if you're younger eating a ton of protein. Not saying protein's bad for young children, but my nutritionist told me that she isn't worried about me over consuming protein just because I am past the pubescent stage where all my hormones and stuff and all my bodily functions are pretty much well regulated and past that issue. So she said, I'm not concerned with your protein intake, but they do say you should consume like, don't quote me on it, but I believe it's like 1 gram of protein per 2 kilograms of body weight. So for me, that's like I should be consuming between 60 and 70 grams of protein a day. Because I weigh 150 pounds, it's like 70 some kilograms, I think, 60 some kilograms. I can't do the math right now in my head, but that would be about that. So you kind of get the idea behind that. Honestly, this is my opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree or disagree with it. I don't think following a ketogenic diet is ideal. I think anything with the word diet just puts a big warning label to me. Because to me the word diet means that you're cutting out something that's probably important to your health. And yes, you're cutting out a lot of carbs here, which isn't bad. Everybody should be consuming less carbohydrate, no matter if you are non-diabetic or not. But I do think carbohydrates are essential, more essential than probably the people who are the ketogenic diet people think. But I try to eat what many would call an ideal diet. I try to make sure it's well-rounded with protein. Protein source is number one, from meats and plant-based proteins. Lots of non-starchy vegetables. Some starchy vegetables like squash, pumpkins, carrots, rutabagas are okay. Those are probably better for you. I try to limit like the potatoes and the really high carb starchy foods like potatoes, breads, rices, pastas, etc. and the sweets and minimal fruit unless it's fruits that are really high in fiber, like berries. Those are types of the things I will eat. As far as fats are concerned, I do try to stay away from the saturated fats. Try to eat more of the unsaturated and healthier fats that come from like nuts, seeds, and avocados, but that doesn't mean if I want a stick of butter or some fat from meat, it isn't going to kill you as long as everything is in moderation. So honestly, I would never truly follow a ketogenic diet. I would just eat a variety. Eat an ideal diet. That's kind of my opinion on it. Whether or not you agree with me is another story. But just follow an ideal diet. If you ask me my opinion if I would ever go to this, probably not. I may or may not be doing it naturally just because I am reducing my carbohydrate percentage quite a bit. Just because it is easier to keep blood sugars in control, because carbohydrates is what has the most impact on blood sugar. But what people on the ketogenic diet don't realize too, if you are a diabetic, protein does raise your blood sugar, but it does it at a much slower rate. I actually had a big steak at a restaurant the other night, and I had a salad, and the only carb-loaded thing I had was like 20 French fries, which was like 30 carbs, and I had like half a bun, which was like 15. I had like 45 total grams of carbs, because the salad really was nothing because of the toppings I put on it, and I counted like 2 or 3 for the dressing. It was iceberg lettuce, which if you guys know was like crunchy water, and I had a big prime rib, which is beef steak, which really, beef meats don't really contain carbohydrate. I stayed pretty flatline after taking my insulin, but then I slowly started creeping up from the protein. Protein will raise your blood sugar, and maybe some people on the ketogenic diet don't realize that protein does raise your blood sugar. And if you're increasing your fat too, and you do consume carbs, that will delay the blood sugar spike. So you might want to not take your insulin until you notice your blood sugar starts rising as the fats begin to be metabolized and digested. So the building blocks for energy, the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats all play a role in your blood sugar. It's not just carbohydrates, and I think that's one of the weaknesses seen in the ketogenic diet here, is that I think people are oblivious that proteins and fats do affect your blood sugar. Fats don't really raise it, but it delays the onset of a raise. Protein will gradually raise the blood sugars. So I found out that if I take like an extra rapid acting unit of insulin after like 2 hours after a meal, if I have a very heavy protein meal, like say a steak, I don't notice my blood sugars don't go above like 150 or 160. You could also take regular human insulin like a Novolin R or Humulin R that you could buy at Walmart, the regular insulin that Dr. Bernstein and all his people that follow his diet and his diabetes solution use. You could use that for protein covering too. I might look into that. I might give, the rapid acting for the carbs and inject myself with regular to cover the protein. I might look into that as I go further on here. But anyways, I think that's all I have to say on the ketogenic diet. I kind of gave you my thoughts, my opinions, what it kind of is, and would I ever follow it? Probably not. But again, if this is working for people who have diabetes, go for it. The main thing with me, as long as your doctor is okay with it, doesn't mean if your doctor says don't do it, that doesn't mean you don't have to listen to your doctor. Don't listen to your doctor 24/7 because you know your own body better than they do. But if you start noticing your doctor's ordering lab work and your lipid panels are really high or really abnormal, or like your blood serum for like your potassium, sodium, chloride, your electrolytes, your fluid intakes are all really out of whack, or like your thyroid hormones or whatever other things that they decide to test you for as you go down the road in the future become out of whack, I might take a look and see if the diet isn't causing some issues with that. But if you feel good and all your like blood work and the doctor is totally satisfied with all your statistics and vitals and blood work, lab work, whatever you are doing, go for it. I guess if it works for you, it works for you, but I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing and just eating a well-rounded, ideal diet, what everybody should be eating, no matter if a person has a problem with blood sugar control or not. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me for episode 1 of T1D with Maddie. Stay tuned for next month, February 1st, 2019, and we will be doing another episode, and I either will pick a question from myself, or I'll keep finding questions and stuff from you guys that you leave in the comments. So like I said, feel free to keep commenting suggestions for me, any controversial topics that you might want me to talk about. I am willing to open up and say my thoughts, opinions, and the facts that I have learned about these. So like I said, comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you do decide to subscribe, you can turn on that notification bell and next to the subscribe button so you never miss when I upload something new. Once I hit the big 100 subscribers, I will be doing my diagnosis story so you can find out how exactly I came to know I had type 1 diabetes. So look forward to that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're having a happy New Year's Day. Until the next video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.